Here's the man of the hour. Oh, God. Hello. Hey, Moo Moo.
You want to say something?
Can you say meow? Meow.
No. This is Hilton.
Hi. Hi, my name is Hilton. I don't know what kind of accent he would have. What do you think he would talk like?
I feel like he would be like an English butler. Like, hello, my name is Hilton.
Yeah, that's good. I can see that too.
Right away, sir. Cheerio.
I was thinking of Ralph. How do you say it? Fiennes?
Oh, Rafe Fiennes.
Rafe Fiennes.
Yeah, it's Ralph Fiennes.
Ralph, yeah. In Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, that's actually a good call.
That's like how I imagine. He just looks like he would be in a Wes Anderson film.
He does.
So,
that's a great call.
This is our son. I birthed him on November 28th, allegedly.
Yeah. Who's the father? I want to meet this hairy motherfucker.
Self-inseminated.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we have a little kitty. That was very unexpected and made sense though. I mean, he's like the perfect cat.
He is.
I don't think we could ask for a better cat. He likes to cuddle. He's a big time foodie like us.
Loves to sleep, which I love.
Yeah. We got him from the Humane Society and he was everyone's favorite cat. Mm-hmm. And they said that he was given back by the owner, the original owner, because he slept too much. And I was like, say less. Where's the papers? Like, sign him over.
Literally.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
That's exactly what happened. So, yeah.
No hyperbole.
We've had him for a few days now. By the time you guys listen to this, it'll probably be a full week. He's 3 years old. And he has a little mole.
A little Cindy Crawford beauty mark.
Yeah. Everyone says Marilyn Monroe, but I'm like, no, Cindy Crawford.
Yeah, Cindy Crawford, for sure. At least this generation.
Such a model. He is a model. He's a good looking cat. He looks like a little cow. So his name is Hilton. We did not name him that, but we're going to stick with it because I think it fits him. I think it makes sense.
I agree.
But of course, like if you have a pet, what are you actually calling them their real name? Like,
oh yeah, there's thousands of nicknames.
I call him Mr. Moo because he has like cow spots on him, or Moo Moo,
or Mr.
or Mister.
I'll call him Hilly Boy every now and then.
When he gets on the counter, I'm like, "Hey brother, get off the counter." Yeah, I sometimes will talk in a baby voice, but I'm more like, "Bro, what are you doing?" Or like.
Well, that's if you're trying to be stern.
Well, yeah. But even when I'm saying hi, I don't know. I've never been a baby voice person.
Well, you do.
Sometimes.
Maybe not a baby voice, but like a cute voice.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're so cutie. Let me pet you because I feed you.
Let me pet you and give me a kiss. Yeah. So we love him.
We do.
And we're parents now. So if you need parenting advice, feel free to come to us. This episode is going to be very different from the others. I haven't really gotten serious on the pod, and for whatever reason today, I just felt like wanted to get into more serious conversation and talk about grief. Yeah. So, I don't know how everyone's going to enjoy this one. I might say some things that are not great, but I want to be as clear and concise as possible. I took actually some notes because I want to be very clear and concise with how I deliver some of my messaging around grief, because what I want to discuss specifically is the unexpected things that you will potentially experience with grief that people just don't talk about, or that you don't really hear about or think of.
Like
when
nobody
you think
warns
of,
you?
Yeah. Nobody really warns you.
Gotcha.
So yeah, almost to like debunk some myths about grief in a way. I don't think anyone can prepare for it, and everyone has a very different experience with it. So this is just kind of leaning into my experience, but also what I have kind of heard from other people who I know who have experienced loss. So for those of you who don't know, I am part of the Dead Dad Club. That's my one joke for today. My dad passed away unexpectedly in 2019. He was 74. Probably had some underlying health issues, and he was a doctor. So, he didn't want to go to a doctor to get help. He wanted to, I feel like doctors typically like to try and self-diagnose, fix himself, whatever. So, that was very shocking. And so I'll kind of go through, now that I've kind of set the tone, we'll kind of go through some of my experience. So number one, grief is not linear. This might be understood by many. So there's several different stages of grief. So there is shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, testing, and acceptance. There's a lot of different stages. And, I think sometimes people think that it goes in a linear fashion and you work through it that way. At first you're really sad, then you get angry, then you are depressed, and then you've accepted it and you just think of the happy things or whatever. And it's just not that way. You can experience all of these things at once. You can experience, one feeling for 2 months, and then, it revisits you again 5 years later. You can, feel these things, every single one of these things on and off, through the course of a day, a month, 1 hour, 10 years. So mine has definitely been a combo of everything, and things will pop up randomly. And it becomes an assault on the mind because you can't really control it, and certain things will set it off. And it's never really things that you necessarily expect. For example, Valentine's Day actually set me off the first Valentine's Day. I didn't even remember that. My dad always loved Valentine's Day. And he would get me and my mom flowers and jewelry. And it was actually kind of a strangely big holiday that we would celebrate. It was always nice. And my dad cared about it. And so when I had my first Valentine's Day, I woke up and remembered, oh man, I'm not waking up to a fully cooked breakfast and flowers and a card and maybe a little, piece of jewelry or something like that, not to get materialistic, but it was just, there was no one there to celebrate with, even if I had a significant other or not. So, that was strange. But movies and TV and even reality TV will paint this picture of you will at some point remember the happy times. You'll get there. In time, you'll remember everything that was good. And I think that the intent and the messaging, it comes from a good place. But it's just not always the case. And some people may have had a really poor relationship with this loved one, whether it's a parent, a sibling, a significant other. They may have not had a great relationship with that person, even though they are, severely grieving that loss, and they just might not be positive memories. So I think to kind of bucket everything into, but no matter, when you lose this person, at some point, once the grief is over, air quotes, you'll just look back on the good times. And I can't say that, I don't know if I'm going to get to that place with the loss of my dad, because the relationship was not perfect and it was a tough one. Loved him very much. He was my dad. But yeah, I'll get into it more in a minute. So anyways, I think, yeah, just the thought of like grief being linear is not always how it runs its course. So just know, there's going to be days where you feel really strange feelings, and it'll come up when you probably least expect it. And it's not the best. Number 2, the logistics. When you have a parent or a sibling or a significant other that dies, obviously there is an immediate emotional shock that comes along with that, whether it's expected, whether it's unexpected, and you're hit with this overwhelming news. But people don't realize, or probably don't think about, the arrangements that you have to start making almost immediately. So to tell kind of my story, I found out I was getting ready to travel for Memorial Day weekend. I was going to drive down to the beach. It was going to be great. My parents are divorced. We're divorced at that time. And so I had a call from my mom. She's like, "Where are you?" She's in hysterics. And I like immediately, I just knew that this is what was happening. So I had to pull over in a FedEx parking lot and receive this news, and pretty much lost it. There are these like workers in a truck next to me in this parking lot, just like, what the fuck is going on with this girl? And, I'm just like sitting on the ground, like sobbing. So I learned this news. I'm in the FedEx parking lot. I was running errands. Obviously, like I then understand and learn, I have to start making arrangements, but because I am one and only child, I have a half brother and a half sister who do not live in Atlanta. My dad lived in Georgia and Villa Rica. My mom is living in South Carolina and was at the time. So I had no one here. So I find out I have to drive out to Villa Rica alone after receiving this news, go to the funeral home and figure out and make decisions about what to do with his body, what funeral arrangements to make, all of these things. He doesn't even have a will.
I was going to ask you that. Did he specify anything like what he wants done with his body, or?
Absolutely not.
Did he want a funeral?
Absolutely. I have no idea. And so if you knew my dad, you knew that he was probably the most intelligent person you probably ever had a conversation with, but was very disorganized. I feel like that's typically how it goes with like surgeons, and I don't know, you can just tell by the handwriting. I mean, it's all over the place. So, So parents divorce, half brother and half sister, did not grow up with them, even though, we've developed a closer relationship over the years. The reason that I have a half brother and half sister stems from a dark place in my parents' relationship, my dad's, relationships. And my mom was still very close with my dad, but they were divorced. So, I'm driving to Villa Rica alone. I get there. I'm having to yell on the phone between family members of, your dad would want this. Oh, no, he would want this. No, this is what we need to do. No, this is what we need to do. Somehow I'm the one who's having to make the decisions. And, it's a very arguably the most extreme emotional time you will have to go through. And I'm having to yell and scream at people. And, you don't want to have to deal with logistics. Like, you want to just sit and be able to be sad, but like, you don't get that opportunity. And there comes a lot of resentment during that time. And it makes it really challenging.
So why was it put on you? Because you were basically next of kin?
Yes. I think it was always understood that when arrangements or decisions like that were going to be made, it was probably going to be me.
Yeah.
Again,
your parents were divorced.
My parents were divorced, so my mom legally couldn't make any decisions.
Right.
And I don't, I don't necessarily want to go super in depth with, you know, the relationship between my half brother and half sister. Again, I have a good relationship with them now, but where it comes from is something that is probably uncomfortable for all of us.
Yeah, you don't.
And so, you know, it was very, very challenging and sad and uncomfortable. So there was frustration and resentment and all of that when I just wanted to be sad, but I couldn't be sad because I had to be a rock and be that person. And so, you know, then during and after the funeral, there's also legal things you have to handle. So like clearing out their homes. Do you sell the cars? What do you do with the bank accounts? Are people coming after you for things that, you know, were left behind? Like
obligated to it.
Any assets,
Yeah.
not even obligated, but they're trying to get stuff from you. And so, there's so, I can't even tell you, there's so much that's involved. And again, when you have to go through all the legal and the things like that, and you're very alone in that, it's a very dark time. Like it's just the last thing that you want to deal with. And it makes you resent everything and everyone. And you see people going out and they're having fun and they're having their dinners and they're traveling. And meanwhile, you're clearing out your dead dad's 3 homes every weekend for 3 months and having to fight with the coroner because they keep getting your dad's name wrong on the death certificate. And it's so it's so tough. And so for anyone who has had to be in that position, I feel for you. And it doesn't get talked about. And like, I haven't really shared that with a lot of people. And so, you know, I'm sharing that now because there could be people in your life, you may even have to deal with that, you know? And so I just want to be really real here. That is the harsh reality. Like you want to be sad, but guess what? You might have to suck it up and figure out the hard shit. And that's the reality of it. And, you know, when people would say, oh, you're so strong, you're so this, you're so that, it was just like, I don't need it. I don't need to hear it. Right. Like, no, I don't.
It's a bit patronizing.
It's patronizing, and I know people don't mean for it to be that way, but ultimately, it's just like you can't even fathom what is happening. And again, everyone has different experiences with this. Some people's might be easier. Some people might be able to sit back and not really have to deal with the logistics and things like that for certain, you know, losses. But there is going to come a time where you probably do. And it sucks. It really sucks. So. Can
I ask a question that might cut?
Yeah.
As far as the resentment thing goes, did you ever, this is going to sound kind of weird, did you ever resent your dad because of him dying? Like, you're putting this all on me. Like, I got to figure all this out. Like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Maybe selfishly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is actually kind of people feel that like, oh God, why'd you have to die? Like whatever. And yes, I think right. I did feel those emotions, but it was more so almost I was having a pity party for myself. Like the fact that I'm having to do this, like, and this is gonna, people are not gonna like this. But you know, people who have parents who are not divorced, people who have, you know, strong family life, these things typically can be a little bit easier when it comes to logistics because there might really be a will in place. You know exactly what to do. You've discussed these things. You don't have people fighting over things. And it made me resent healthier families. And again, you never know what goes on behind closed doors, but it made me resent people who have like parents who are still together. Gotcha. And like, if my parents were still together, I probably wouldn't have to do much. You know, you put it on your mom or your dad or whatever. But at the end of the day, I also learned a lot about me and what I can do in times of dark. And I think I'm a far better person for it.
Yeah.
And it's matured me and changed me as a person.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say like I regret having to go through this, because it literally was not my choice.
No, of course. Not regret.
But I feel okay with going through it, because I like doing hard things. And that sounds strange, but I think I almost would have felt more useless and like uncomfortable if I like wasn't put to work in a hard time like this. So yeah. I'm gonna move on to number 3. So a time for love. It's not always going to be a time of sharing love with the people who love this person. In some cases, when someone passes, it's not always easy as, oh man, I wish I could have said this, or, you know, ask them this one last thing. For me, it was like, damn, I should have figured out how to fix the last 15 years of my relationship with my dad. But, you know, here we are. And, you know, it's almost overwhelming to think about the conversations of the things we would have had to probably work at to get to a quote unquote good place. What's ever really a good place, you know? But, I think it's not always like a time for thinking back, you know, on the good times. Again, like I said, it can be a time of frustration around what the relationship even was. And like, you maybe didn't get to experience the same type of positive relationship with that person as maybe someone else did. And it's a different experience. And so, you know, I don't think it's always a time for being like, oh, love this person, or people coming up to you and, you know, saying, oh God, yeah, like I'm sorry for your loss. And I kind of hated that when people would say like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It's like, you don't know my relationship with my dad, so what do you have to be sorry about? Like, it was this weird chip on my shoulder that I had of like, I don't need you telling me that you're sorry, because what does that even mean?
It's not helping.
And it's not helping. And like, I don't need you to help me. Like, I have dealt with the hardest fucking shit.
Right.
And like, I don't know, just like hang out. Like, it was so weird. I didn't really want to talk to people. Like I don't know. It was,
Can I propose, like, how would you feel if they didn't say that though? If they just showed up and they're like, hey, what's up, Rebecca?
You know,
that would be super disrespectful not to say like, sorry for your loss. I feel
right. And I think, again,
I get what you're saying,
it's like, it comes out of a good place.
Of course.
And it, you know, yeah, it would probably be upsetting if people didn't show up. But at the same time, it's almost like
it's shut up and just be there.
Well, it's almost like this actually isn't about you.
Well, of course, right.
And
exactly.
And that's, I think, where it stems from. So again, this is my own personal experience.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I don't know if other people have experienced this, you know, with losing a parent or like a sibling, but that is how I personally felt. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's the way that you should feel or you're definitely going to, but that's how I was. Sharing grief. So this kind of is what I touched on a little bit a minute ago, but yeah, I didn't appreciate sharing the grief with the others. It was like an experience that I felt entitled to on my own. Like, I'm sorry for your loss. Oh, I miss him so much too. Great. I'm glad to hear that you had such a positive relationship with my dad. I didn't. It was unique and confusing and not perfect. And I think, you know, because I'd post him on my story or, you know, I would talk about him and stuff to people, I think that they had this idea that like him and I had such a strong bond. And just because I saw him often doesn't mean that we really knew anything about each other. And so when I would hear people coming up to me and, you know, sharing these stories, I'm like, great, good for you. Glad that you had fun times with my dad. Cause like you have no idea what my life has been. So like it's not that it was insensitive, but to me, it was just like oh God, I don't want to hear. I don't need to hear about everyone's experience with my dad. Like some people like to share in the stories and all of that. For me, I was cool with talking about it with my mom and my half brother and half sister. And that was about it.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. I got two more. So being mixed race and like losing that side.
Oh yeah, I've heard you talk about this before.
That parent. So like, I'm half American, half Filipino. My dad was an immigrant here, so I'm a first generation. And when that foreign part of you dies, when that that foreign part of you dies, when that parent dies, or in this case, it definitely would be a parent. That part of you and that culture feels like it's dying within you too. And it doesn't feel like it lives on, and you kind of feel hopeless and there's confusion. For me, especially because I didn't know tons about my culture. I was not really introduced to my family on that side. There were lots of secrets and things kept. And, again, I'm not going to say that's another story for another day, because I don't know if that needs to be like discussed here. Maybe someday. But there's so much that I don't know about myself, and to lose that side of me when I knew so little, it's kind of like unbearable. I'm reading Crying in H Mart right now and hearing about her mother's loss and like the loss of that part of her and her identity and that culture. It rings such a chord that it's taken me so long to get through this book. It's incredible. It's so well written, so poignant and sharp, and like
it hits
just
home with you
on the nose. Yes. Yeah. And it's overwhelming.
Is she mixed too?
Yes. So she's half Korean.
Right. So
she's half Korean, half American.
You have a double connection with it. Because of the mixed race thing.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's not just an Asian.
Totally.
Yeah.
I thought you meant because she's Korean. I'm like, bro.
Well, no, I know you're not Korean.
Yeah. No, totally. And so, I think there's just this level of identity crisis that you have, and it becomes very painful. And so that I was not expecting to feel that so heavily. And it's not like I can now I could call my half brother and half sister, and they would, tell me things. And, their mom was actually like full Filipino as well. So like they were fully pretty much ingrained in the culture, even though they grew up here in America, but like they know a lot more than I do. So, I can ask them, but, my dad didn't teach me a lot. And I think that has to do with just the whole relationship with him and my mom and me and everything. And it was rough. So there's that. So lastly, this is number 6 of my unexpected things to experience. The judgment of others. And this one is very interesting, and it hit me like a ton of bricks when I started to experience it. When you lose someone, you now experience the impact that other people's lives have on you and the choices that they are making in their daily lives. So as humans, like most of us need to feel a level of control, some more than others. I am someone who is a control freak. I've always had issues with control, and it's something I work on in therapy, but I am completely on edge when I cannot be in control of a situation. Like I am desperately trying to find an out almost in any scenario, like before I'm even put in the scenario. Like it's just not a fun way to live. Even with like Ubers, I'm horrified that I'm going to get sex trafficked. I share my Uber location with 3 people for every ride. I, have a PIN number. I type in with my Uber to make sure that it's them. I check the license plate.
That's just smart.
Well, yes, it is smart, but I get an Uber Black every time I, take a ride, which is not economically friendly, but it's like these things that I have to do. And
fair enough.
Yeah. So that's just an example. So anyways, this has gotten incredibly heightened over the last, what is it? We're coming on 4 years, I guess, this year. And so I get really overwhelmed, watching some of the choices that my friends and family will make. And so, yeah, if you've experienced the loss of a parent or sibling, someone close to you, you might know what I'm talking about, like reckless behavior. For example, I have friends who do drugs. I have also done drugs. I'll be open and honest about that. But after losing... After losing your father, or someone, I'm so much more alert about what I'm doing and what others are doing. And like, I get uncomfortable and upset with certain extracurriculars that people will participate in because like the logic in my brain is, okay, you've never experienced a loss like the loss of a parent. Like, how are you just going to act so recklessly? There's people who want you to stick around, and it's really frustrating at times because, I don't want to be a person that's judgmental around people's life choices. But ultimately that does start to happen sometimes. And that's how my grief has kind of morphed. Like it becomes the sadness and anger and almost feelings of disrespect around levels of ignorance. And it can feel very lonely at times. And like, I feel like a loser for being judgmental for certain things that are very day to day, that are not necessarily reckless, but, it's affected me so deeply. And part of the reason that I am on anti-anxiety and anti-depression medicine, because I couldn't bear to watch some of the choices that a lot of people in my life were just making. And so, I'm talking about it now, and, I'm not perfect. I make questionable choices at times, but that is just the reality of like how your brain can kind of morph during grief. You just don't know what's going to happen. And so, it even boils down to like exercise and money. Like, I'll speak for a specific example. Years ago, there is a bachelorette trip that I could not be part of. And, I wasn't open and honest about maybe some of the reasons I was not going to go. But ultimately, I knew my dad was old. I was a only child, and I was going to have to start saving money, and I needed to save money for the funeral costs. I knew that I was, or medical bills or things like that, because I knew that this was coming and I was going to have to be the one to really support this. And so there caused a rift between one of my friends and I, and finally came out. We had a discussion, and I ended up sharing this and the reasons why, and we're in a good place now. But you never know, like, I don't know how sometimes choices will impact, simple choices like that will impact other people, or maybe why they're making those decisions. And exercise too. God, like, I get frustrated at my mom sometimes because I'm like, hey, you're my only other parent around. Like, can you go on a walk like every day or exercise more, because I want you to like stick around. I want you to have a healthy diet. Not that she doesn't, but like, I want her to be more active. I want her to do these things because I'm like, hey, guess what? Hello, I'm still here. Like, if you die, like, bye, it's just me. So, I don't want to come off holier than thou, because again, everyone is entitled to be making their own decisions, but I was not prepared to be so impacted and overwhelmed by some of the choices that my friends were making after the friends and family, after the experience I had with like losing someone. And it's like in my head, I would work so hard to do the most to keep myself in shape, to, eat well, to keep, a great job, to save money, to do these things. And again, I am not perfect. I'm not perfect at these things by any means, but I became so hyper aware of it for a while. It's getting better, but it's a work in progress. So it can harbor a lot of resentment unknowingly. And I don't want people to be surprised by these things. And I don't think anyone necessarily should be, but just wanted to share like my experience and things that did shock me. And so that's kind of my goal and why I wanted to talk about this, just being mindful of the people around you. It's also like, how do you not harbor feelings like this and such when you experience grief? I don't think that any of these things are avoidable. Again, it's just to kind of shed light on them. People are always going to die. That is a constant and a guarantee. And it's something that we all have to deal with and we're all going to experience. But I think just consider the choices that you're making in your life and, think about maybe people who have experienced loss, and maybe how that can impact you too. I don't know if I said that the way I wanted to say that. So I guess just try to be the best person you can be for others, because others want you to stick around.
Yeah.
I think that's how I want to say that. So yeah. Again, I'm lucky enough to have had a therapist prior to my dad passing, even though she literally went on maternity leave like the month after he died. And I was like, okay, did you want to do this maybe 3 years ago, but instead of now?
You can't say that.
Yeah.
That's so selfish.
Yeah. But like
people have their own lives.
Of course they do.
Her life is not to talk to you.
Of course it's not. But I think
saying.
Of course it's not, but I in that moment and in that, like, those hard times, I'm like, damn, this is like the time that I really needed you. And of course,
Right.
This is the time that like
That's
you go on
shit luck.
maternity leave. No, exactly. So I'm kind of making a joke there.
I
Yeah.
know.
Okay. So anyways, you can, like, there's therapy, there is like counseling resources, that are even free. I'm lucky enough to have free counseling now at my company, which is amazing. And so, I am really thankful for that. So look at, what you can do to help your mental health. And I'm kind of glad I prepared for this. I also don't think everyone needs therapy. That's a different conversation. But there's a lot of resources out there that are easily accessible. And I encourage that to talk about these things, because I actually probably wouldn't have been able to formulate any of this without therapy. So, that's my time, guys.
Good night.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And if you want me to talk about any more serious topics, if you enjoyed this, great. This was kind of like a cathartic thing for me to do, because I've wanted to do this for a long time now. I enjoy the funny stuff, but this was just needed. And so, if you want me to sprinkle in more of this stuff, if you enjoy it, let me know. And I can play with some topics and stuff, but do all the things, like, review, share with your friends. Got a frog in my throat. Do all the things, share with your friends, and we'll see you next week, guys.